Hey, Next Level Leadership, we're back. We are here to provide some more content to equip and develop leaders in our community. My name is Tanner Petty. I get the chance to serve on staff here as the development resident, and I'm kind of the one that kind of does a lot of the background and kind of oversees Next Level Leadership as a whole. But today I'm here to provide some content and to help equip and develop you in this season. So real quick before I get into that content, I just want to say that if you are a part of the Next Level Leadership community and you're wondering when we're going to meet again in person, we will communicate that to you once we know more information. So as the future of what we do unfolds a little more, we will make sure to communicate and let you know. But for now, we're going to continue to try to send you content and develop you online and through this platform. So real quickly, what I want to talk about today, what I want to address today for leaders is this idea of normalcy, this idea of craving normalcy. So at some point during this pandemic, things for you greatly changed. And the reality is that everybody had something completely changed and disrupted. Nobody was unaffected. So whether it was personal, like your kids no longer go to school, but they stay at home with you, or you no longer go to work, but you stay at home and work, maybe with your kids in the room, I don't know what it is, or even on a leadership capacity. I think especially in a leadership capacity, a lot of what we have led and what we have done has just greatly changed because of this season. And actually, personally, that has been kind of my story throughout this. Almost everything I lead and oversee has either been canceled or has been greatly changed. An example is why we are providing this content online and not in person. And for a little bit, there was a sense of like, man, I wish we had what we were doing before. I wish I could be with the people that I was leading before and get to see maybe in person the impact I was having. And there was this moment of like kind of grief of like kind of addressing that loss. And I want to say that is completely normal. But what I continue to see happening, what I continue to kind of hear throughout this season is people continue to ask, all right, when are we going back to normal? When is everything in return to what it once was? And I think as leaders, that is a question that we need to be potentially careful of as we continue to move forward in this season. So the idea of craving normalcy is totally normal, but at a certain point, I believe it becomes unhelpful. Because at a certain point, if you continue to think about what you once had, or how you once led, or how your team once operated, or even how your family, how you guys can, like what rhythms you used to have, if you continue to work towards that and just even think about that and dwell on that, you'll kind of eventually just kind of sputter. Your tires will sputter, you'll stay in the same place. We won't actually pave a way forward for those following behind us or working alongside of us, or even ourselves. We won't actually move forward into what might be had for us in this season. So my challenge today is, rather than seeking normalcy, to lean into this moment. Rather than seeking normalcy, lean into this moment. And in a little bit, I'm going to talk about how I think we can do that. But the idea of normalcy and comfort being disrupted is not foreign to history or the scriptures. In fact, this is exactly where the Israelites find themselves when they are sent into exile into Babylon from Israel itself. And so this story is, a lot of this is found in Jeremiah, and throughout the book of Jeremiah, he kind of tells this story of calling Israel to repentance, and then eventually Babylon comes and brings them into exile. And one key point in this story is in Jeremiah 29. So now, first of all, I want to address that I do not believe we are in some sort of exile, like judgment exile. We are in a sense of exile in that we have been put in a place that we don't want to be, but we are not being actively judged by God, I don't think. We're not being invaded by enemy territory or whatever it is. So I just want to address that. But also, even in Jeremiah 29, there can be some misconceptions about what Jeremiah is saying in that passage. The reality is, if you've grown up in the church, or you've been around the church, or even if not, you've probably even heard the verse Jeremiah 29:11, which is, I know the plans that God has for you, plans that prosper you, whatever. You probably have that on a coffee mug at your house, or it's probably on some nice little painting in your local Christian shop. And the reality is, what Jeremiah is communicating in that message and in that passage is very different than what we normally think. So some of the context of Jeremiah 29 is, this is right after Israel's leaders have been exiled from Israel to Babylon. So they've come in, Babylon has come in, they've taken over the city, and they've taken all the leaders and they've shipped them off into Babylon. And this is a kind of a common tactic, is if I took all of your leaders and just shipped them out, you kind of leave the those who stay kind of in dismay and rumble, and then actually appoint their own leader to oversee that land. And you take all of the main leadership and you can kind of assimilate them into your own culture. That was normal. And so Jeremiah is writing to those leaders in this passage. And so what is happening is there's conflicting prophecies from different camps. So you have other prophets who are saying things to these leaders like, hey, hold on, everything is going to return to what it once was. All of the comforts of the treasures that you once knew of the temple are going to be restored. So basically saying everything that you led before, everything you were in charge of before, everything you enjoyed before is going to be restored back to the way it was. Don't worry, this is going to go away quickly. Which at first is like a fine message. It's kind of nice. Like, hey, don't worry, it's not going to be as bad as you think. But in reality, it was keeping them from what actually God was intending for them in that season. And so Jeremiah comes around in Jeremiah 29 and says a very different passage. He actually instructs them, specifically in verses 4 through 7. He says, build bridges, plant gardens, take wives, and actually seek the blessing of Babylon. And what he is saying is, hey, this is not ending anytime soon. So rather than craving the comforts of what you once had or seeking the positions that you once had, walk into Babylon, embrace this exile, build bridges, meaning take part into the community, plant gardens, actually seek the blessing and begin to produce fruit in there. Take up wives, meaning enjoy the community that is going to be provided for you in that season. And through doing those things, seek the blessing of Babylon. And so what I think Jeremiah was saying to those Israel leaders actually translates to us today. In that rather than trying to crave what we once had and just thinking, okay, if I can just hold on for long enough, I can make it back to where I was. We actually need to embrace this season and see what God might have for us and almost embrace this kind of like unliteral exile that we're in, this situation that we don't want to be in. Embrace it and see what God has for us. And so as leaders right now in this community, I think there are potentially three things that God has for us that we can really lean into and begin to see growth. And that first one is actually growth itself. I think a lot of people in past seasons were leading, and I know myself it can fall into this camp, is we were leading from what I would call a Brita filter leadership. Meaning a Brita filter, like at home, it drains the water. And every time you need to actually use the Brita filter, it never seems full. And so people were coming to you with needs. People you were leading were coming to you and wanting you to pour out wisdom or give advice or make decisions. And your Brita filter, you're having to constantly go back, fill it up, and pour it out really quickly. Whenever you needed it most, it's actually empty. And I think a lot of people were kind of leading from that exhausted point. I think in this season, God is actually creating deep wells of leadership, wisdom, of love, grace, of giving us, kind of pouring new things into us and creating that deeper well so that when we walk out of the season, or even right now in this season, and people come with us for that same wisdom and advice, we can give them from an abundance of a well versus the potential scarcity of a Brita filter. So I think right now, one of the things is growth. And so my question for you right now is, what growth might God have for you in this season that you might be neglecting? What growth can you lean into? What practice can you begin to develop that will help you grow and become a better leader? Second, it's this idea of healing. So our staff right now, our church staff, is actually going through kind of the book Soul Care as a staff via Zoom, not in person, don't worry. And as we go through that book of Soul Care, the idea is that there are things in us that are hardened, that are dark, that are ugly, that are actually still hurting. And right now in this season, some of those things are coming to the surface because we don't have the same distractions, we don't have the same pace of life. And so as those things come to the surface, we actually deal with them. And actually, if we deal with those things, we'll come out the other side better able and equipped to lead those who might be in similar situations. So some of you might find yourself in that place, that you have things that are coming to the surface that you need to deal with. You need to actually work through and receive healing. So my question to you is, what was once hidden that is now coming to the light and needs to receive healing? My encouragement to you as leaders is to press into that healing, press into that discomfort, feel that pain that you used to feel, let it be healed, and actually walk out the other side a better leader, better equipped to not lead from a place of wounding, but a place from deep healing. And the third thing is impact. So I think even in this season, there is new impact and greater impact to be had than we actually think there is. And the number one way to miss impact right now is to focus on what you had before and actually not be awake to the present. So whether it's your family, whether it's a roommate, whether it's your team and it's online, whatever way it is, just think and ask yourself this question: what impact can I have right now that I might be missing? And so lean into that potential impact. It might be helping the needy around you. It might be helping someone who you know is hurting. I don't know what that impact is, but lean into that impact. So next to leadership, what I want to say is if you enjoyed this content, if you really thought this helped you and you think it could help other leaders, I encourage you to share it. But what I want to say is, hey, let's lean into this moment. Let's think through what God might have for us. Let's seek the growth He might have for us. Let's press into the healing. And let's really lean into the impact we might be having in this season. And what I want to say is this season, it might not come to an end as soon as we want it to, but it does not mean right now as leaders we need to stop and not continue to pursue what God might have for us. So next to leadership, we're excited to provide this content. I hope that we're back soon in person. But until then, continue to check up with us online. Again, share this content if you enjoyed it. We missed you, and I hope this benefited you in some way.